We always called it the idiot mile. At first, it sounded kind of cool to us, but after hearing the grown-ups talk about it over and over, building it up so much, we started to roll our eyes and just called it that instead. I grew up in a small town, tucked away somewhere in the deep south. I think it was Mississippi. Or maybe Alabama. Honestly, I'm not sure. It was definitely a tiny spot, lost in the middle of nowhere. And even though not many people lived there, the place was pretty diverse. Kids from all different backgrounds. I don't recall ever leaving the village when I was younger, and I can't even remember the name of the town I grew up in. Heck, I've forgotten a lot of details about it. But the walk? That's something I'll never forget. It's tough to describe what the walk actually meant. To most people, it probably sounds crazy. Maybe even harsh. But for us, it was just part of growing up. A rite of passage. It was the day you went from being a boy to becoming a man. It was like a clear line in the sand. Every boy who's old enough has to do it. It's just expected. When you turn 13, you take your walk. You get assigned a route, a time, and then you walk. We didn't really talk about it much when we were younger. My friends and I had heard about it a million times from our parents and the older boys in the village. They made it sound like this great thing, how we'd come back as young men. We used to laugh it off. Maybe not many people can relate, but when we were kids, we didn't care about growing up. Being a kid was enough for us. But as we got closer to the age when it would be our turn, something changed. We started looking forward to it. We realized we were ready. Ready to take that step and become men. I guess when you're young, you don't ask many questions. You don't think too hard about it. You just know that when your time comes, you'll do it, too. It's tradition. And traditions are just, well, they're just the way things are. When it was my turn, the adults decided to have all the 13-year-old boys go together for the first time. A group. A shared experience. Maybe they thought it would help us bond. Or maybe they figured it would make the walk easier. But honestly, I don't think it did. In fact, I think it made it harder. There were 5 of us in the group, like I said, it was a small town, and we were all pretty good friends. We were the only boys around the same age, so it only made sense. Me, Sam, Jonah, Robbie, and Christopher. We set off the day after Jonah's birthday, since he was the last one to turn 13. And even though we used to roll our eyes when the adults went on about the walk, this time was different. We were actually excited. We were ready. Ready to grow up, to become men, to finally live up to whatever we were meant to be. I'll admit, I was nervous, but I didn't let it show. That would have been a terrible way to start out on the path to manhood. My dad had warned me, but it wasn't the kind of warning that freaked me out. It was more of a quiet, serious kind of warning. It's just a walk, son, he'd told me when I asked how it went for him. It'll feel strange, maybe, but that's just how it is. There we were, standing together at dusk, by the corner of the village store, where the town meets the country roads. The sun was low, casting long shadows, and there was a chill in the air that I didn't like. It felt too quiet, like everyone was holding their breath. The older boys, the ones who had already done it, stood on their porches, watching us. Their faces were hard to read. Christopher's dad was the one who sent us off. "All right, boys, time to get moving. You're about to become new young men," he said with real enthusiasm in his voice. "You've got the start of the route, that's all you need. You'll come back when you're ready." Then he stepped aside, and we exchanged a few last words with our families before heading out. "You good to go?" my dad asked, giving me a smile that was supposed to be encouraging. I nodded. Yeah, I was good to go. I looked down the road. It stretched ahead of us, looking just like every other country road I'd seen 100 times before. There was nothing special about it. Nothing scary. Just the same old road with long patches of grass on either side. A few houses dotted the way, spaced out like everything else around there. I couldn't see how anything could go wrong on a road like this. My dad gave me a quick pat on the shoulder before turning back to the other adults. "You'll be fine," he said, and that was that. And so, we began our walk. At first, I didn't feel anything different. The road was just like it always was. The houses, the fields beside me, everything was familiar. It was just a walk, just like Dad had said. Sam and I were joking around. Christopher was already trying to mess with Jonah, and Robbie, as usual, was walking along quietly, lost in his own thoughts. It felt like any other time we hung out. About an hour later, the sun had almost set completely. It was a clear night, so we could still see pretty well. That's when things started to change. Our usual teasing stopped, and for the first time, we actually felt a kind of excitement building. This was it, we were going to be men after this. We cheered, laughed, slapped each other on the backs. I don't think I've ever felt that much energy, that kind of bond, all at once. The road was simple, nothing remarkable about it. We passed a few houses here and there, some barns scattered along the way, and fields that stretched out in all directions. But eventually, something about the road started to feel off. I was the first one to notice it. There was a part of the road that stretched straight ahead for what felt like forever. No turns, no bends. And as we kept walking, it started to feel like the edges of the road were closing in on us. It looked like the road was shrinking. But the weird thing was, no matter how far we walked, it never really seemed to get smaller. I pointed it out, and Sam agreed that it didn't make sense. But the others thought we were just imagining things. They shrugged it off and told us to stop being weird. Trust me, I'm telling you, at that point, it was obvious that something wasn't right with the road. I even crouched down to take a closer look, but the others just laughed and told us to stop overthinking things. At this point, Sam had a look on his face that made me think he wasn't so sure about things either. Sam was my closest friend in the group, always backing me up during debates, and I wonder now if he was just playing along, while secretly thinking I was losing it. I don't know what I'd rather believe, that he was just humoring me, or that the road had somehow slipped past the rules of reality itself. I decided to push it out of my mind, even though it kept nagging at me. We got back into our usual rhythm pretty quickly, shifting back to our excited chatter about what it'd be like to finally be grown men. But as we walked, something about the road started to feel different. Familiar, yes, but in a way that made me feel uneasy. We'd been walking for what felt like hours, taking countless turns and twists, but strangely, not a single fork in the road. I started wondering when this ready moment would come, when we'd reach the end of our walk and head back. But no one else seemed to care. They were all so wrapped up in the idea of becoming men that I didn't want to ruin it by asking. So I kept it to myself and kept walking. Then I noticed Robbie had gone quiet. Not the usual quiet, but an uneasy silence. He looked over his shoulder every few steps, like he was watching something behind us. When I turned to look, though, there was nothing. Just the road, the trees lining it. "You good, Robbie?" I asked, trying to break the tension. Yeah, just," his voice was tight. "I don't know, man." Before I could press him, Sam did what Sam does best, cracked a joke. "You hear those twigs snapping? Old man Terrence is probably out there somewhere, watching us. Still got that shotgun, you think?" It worked, Robbie laughed, and for a moment, everything felt okay again. But that moment didn't last long. As we passed the first house we'd seen in a while, we all noticed something strange. A boy. Standing by a mailbox just off the road. I squinted. He looked young, probably around 7 or 8. His face was blank, staring wide-eyed with his mouth hanging open like he'd forgotten to breathe. He didn't move, didn't say anything. He just stood there, watching. We all stopped walking and stared back at him. Jonah, of course, broke the silence. Hey," he called out. The boy didn't respond with words, but his expression softened, and suddenly he smiled at us. It wasn't a creepy smile. No, it was a polite, normal smile. Just like any other kid might give. I wanted to look away, but something kept me staring. And eventually, we started walking again, but this time, we picked up the pace. I could feel the weight of the kid's gaze on my back. I tried to convince myself it was just nerves, maybe a weird kid out late for no reason. But then we saw another person. This time, a woman, standing by her front gate. Again, she smiled at us, that same friendly, calm smile. And then they started popping up everywhere. People. Mostly old men, women, and a couple of boys. They were just standing in their yards, not moving, not saying anything. Just watching us. Smiling. It was strange. We hadn't seen a house in almost an hour, and now, it seemed like there were 100 of them. They didn't even blink. The more we walked, the more I could swear I saw faces in the fields, peeking above the hedges, watching us from the distance. And then, like a switch, it stopped. The faces were gone, and the road was empty again. We didn't speak for a while after that. 10 minutes of silence passed, and then Jonah stopped walking. He just froze, no explanation, no warning. "Jonah?" Sam called, stepping back toward him. "What's up?" Jonah didn't answer. His eyes were wide, his face pale, and he was staring ahead at nothing. Just an empty stretch of road. After a long, heavy pause, he blinked, slowly shook his head, and muttered, "It's nothing." But the way he said it didn't sound convincing. His voice was off. His gaze wasn't on us anymore. He was looking at something far, far away. Something we couldn't see. Christopher stepped forward. "Hey, come on, Jonah. Let's keep moving." Jonah didn't respond. And that's when it hit all of us at once. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in real danger. The air around us felt thick, like it had been trapped in a room for too long, and the smell of ozone, like before a storm, was heavy in the air. "You guys feel that?" Robbie asked, his voice trembling. I nodded. I couldn't explain it, but something had changed. The whole atmosphere had shifted. We weren't just walking anymore. We were being watched. Followed. Toyed with, maybe. I was more certain of that than I've ever been about anything. I could feel eyes on the back of my neck, like someone, or something, was trailing us. But every time I turned around, there was nothing there. We kept moving, but the silence between us deepened. Robbie never took his eyes off the horizon. Christopher was muttering to himself, his words jumbled and frantic. Jonah kept looking behind him, jerking his head around like he was chasing something just out of sight. The further we went, the more I thought I could hear whispers. Quiet, distant, like they were coming from under the earth, from beneath our feet. "You hear that?" I whispered, barely able to hold my voice steady. Sam shook his head, his face tense. "It's just the wind. Nothing to worry about." But I saw it in his eyes. He didn't believe it. None of us did. We kept walking, though the road seemed to stretch on forever. It twisted and bent in ways that didn't make sense for a country road, as though the path itself was warping, rearranging its very shape. I'll never forget the 3 sharp U-turns we took one after the other, each time passing the same dilapidated shack, just slightly altered in appearance each time. It was like the whole place was being recreated, over and over again, and none of it made any sense. The houses around us were in terrible shape, windows dark, walls rotting. And I don't mean just old and abandoned, the buildings seemed to be decaying before our very eyes. The wood of the barns was warped, the paint peeling, the lawns overgrown. The world itself felt like it was unraveling, as though the road was the only thing holding reality together. I remember one moment so clearly. It felt like someone was breathing right down my neck, hot, clammy breath, so close I could almost feel it. I screamed and stumbled forward, spinning around to see who it was. But when I looked, I found myself facing the rest of the group, their faces a mix of concern and confusion. What the hell? How had I ended up walking backwards without even noticing? Why hadn't anyone said anything? "Hey, come on, dude, it's okay. We're here." "I'm here," Sam said softly, kneeling down to help me up. His voice was calm, soothing, despite the shock I'd put him through. I was breathing fast, hyperventilating, and I couldn't shake the feeling of something being terribly wrong. I grabbed his hand and pulled myself up, feeling a strange need to hold on longer, to keep that connection. I can't explain why, but in that moment, I just wanted to keep holding his hand, to have him near. An hour or so passed, and the tension between us all kept building. Christopher was staring at his shoes, his fists clenched tight at his sides. Jonah's breathing was shallow, quick. Robbie had fallen farther behind, his eyes hollow, distant. We were all feeling it, the creeping madness, the pressure pushing against our minds. Then, the first real fight broke out. I'm not even sure what triggered it, but suddenly, Jonah snapped at Christopher, his voice full of fury. Stop acting like you're fine. You're not fine. None of us are fine, something's wrong, damn it. Christopher's face flushed red. I'm not the one acting weird. You're the one who. But Jonah didn't let him finish. I'm fine. I'm fine, you're the one, his voice cracked, his eyes wild. And then, as if something took over him, he turned and started walking faster, pulling ahead of all of us. Jonah! Robbie called, his voice shaking, but Jonah didn't stop. His hands trembled at his sides, his breath coming in quick, ragged gasps. And then, without warning, he started screaming. The screams came in sudden bursts, loud and jarring, but just as quickly as they erupted, they stopped again. We watched, frozen. Jonah's movements were jerky, like he was being forced forward by something invisible, something that had control over him. Jonah, stop! Sam yelled, his voice desperate. But Jonah didn't hear, or didn't care. He kept moving, getting farther and farther away, swallowed up by the distance. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, not knowing what to do. Finally, wordlessly, we all agreed that there was nothing we could do. We had to keep moving. There was no other choice. The air around us shifted again, changing from thick and oppressive to suddenly crisp, like the air before a storm. It was so sudden, so stark, that we exchanged uneasy looks before continuing. But just as quickly as the crisp air had come, the wind picked up. At first it was manageable, but soon, it howled and pushed against us, making every step harder. I wasn't built for this kind of struggle. Being a skinny kid, the wind felt like a force I couldn't fight, pushing me back with every step. Soon, the road narrowed, and we were surrounded by dense forest on both sides. The trees were strange. Their branches twisted and reached out, as if trying to grab us. The wind had no effect on them, the branches didn't even sway. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching us, waiting for us to come closer, to follow the path they were setting before us. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the wind stopped. The air grew thick again, heavy with humidity. We exchanged another look of confusion, of silent fear, but we pressed on. The silence grew louder as we walked. Our footsteps were the only sound, each one seeming louder than the last, echoing in the stillness around us. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. The boy from earlier. The one with the friendly smile. But now his face was twisted in something ugly, something vile. His expression was full of hate, pure, unfiltered hate. My breath caught in my throat. It should have been funny, a little kid making such a face, but it wasn't funny at all. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. I screamed, pointing at the spot in the forest where I'd seen him, desperately trying to show the others. My words came out in jumbled nonsense, and I scrambled to get closer to the group, my eyes wide with terror. Just like before, it was Sam who came to my aid. His hands slapped lightly against my cheeks, trying to bring me back to reality. Snap out of it, man, there's nothing there. Please, calm down, okay? Nothing's there. Just breathe, okay? Deep breaths. I forced myself to look again, back to the spot in the trees. But the boy was gone. I couldn't see him anymore. Still, I couldn't shake the image from my mind. Sam's grip on my arms tightened, and he helped me to my feet. He was breathing heavily now, too, and I saw the panic in his eyes. I stared at him, trying to ground myself. Slowly, the panic started to ease, replaced by a strange, overwhelming feeling. For a moment, I realized something I hadn't fully acknowledged before. I wanted Sam close again, like I had when he helped me up earlier. I think I loved him in that moment. And I hated myself for it. I hated it. I hated it more than anything else I'd ever felt, more than anything else this godforsaken walk had thrown at me. I hated how I felt, how weak and out of control I was, and I hated him for making me feel that way. For making me lose it. And so, I shoved him. The sound that escaped Sam was a sharp, startled gasp, but it didn't matter. I hit him, harder than I thought I was capable of. The impact knocked him back, and he stumbled, hands clutching his face in shock. He gasped, probably trying to make sense of what had just happened, but I was already on him. I threw him to the ground, and I swung. Again. And again. He tried to shield himself, tried to say something, maybe to beg, but it was all a blur to me. Nothing he could say mattered. Not anymore. I pressed my forearm into his neck, pinning him, and then reached down for a rock on the side of the road. I didn't know why I did it. It was like the rage, the burning anger, had taken over, and I couldn't stop myself. Robbie and Christopher were just standing there, watching. They didn't say a word. They didn't try to pull me off him. They just watched. With a savage cry, I lifted the rock and swung it at Sam's face. The crack of it landing was sickening, like a door slamming shut. Blood exploded from his nose and mouth, his body jerking from the blow, his breath choking in and out in desperate gasps. But I didn't stop. I raised the rock again, my arm shaking with the force of everything I was feeling, and brought it down on him. The impact shattered his cheekbone, the rock sinking into the soft flesh with a sickening squelch. Sam tried to scream, but it came out as a gurgling rasp, blood spilling from his mouth in horrible waves. His hand reached out toward me, weak, trembling, but I didn't care. I hit him again, and again. The rhythm of it was sickening, like something I couldn't stop, something pulling me deeper and deeper into whatever madness this place had stirred inside me. His body went limp. His fingers twitched, then went still. His face. It wasn't even recognizable anymore. Just a bloody, torn mask, shattered beyond repair. He laid there, gasping for breath he couldn't catch, choking on blood he couldn't spit. And then, it stopped. He stopped. I knelt over him, chest heaving, my hands shaking as I let the rock fall from my grip. It was slick with his blood, cold now in the quiet. I was panting, as if I'd just run miles, and the world around me felt distant, blurry. But I hated him still. I hated him with everything in me. And I was satisfied. I finally looked up. Robbie and Christopher were still standing there, not moving, not speaking, just staring at what had just happened. Then, without a word, they turned and kept walking down the road. I don't even remember thinking about it, I just caught up with them. The anger drained from me, like it had never existed, and the act of violence, it was like it had never happened. I buried it deep in my mind, locked it away, and let it fade. I think I forgot about Sam entirely. About our friendship. About everything. It was like he never existed. We walked in silence, just the three of us now, and after a minute, Robbie and Christopher began to fall behind. They were both glancing over their shoulders, their eyes wide, their bodies tense, and then they stepped off into the woods. I called out, but they didn't answer. They just faded into the trees, disappearing into the dark, like shadows swallowed whole by the night. And then, I was alone. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But no, the quiet, it was suffocating. The silence pressed in from all sides, thick and heavy. The trees around me seemed to lean in closer, their twisted branches reaching out like they were alive, watching me, waiting. My footsteps were the only sound, and every one felt like a drumbeat in the thick stillness. The road ahead of me twisted unnaturally, looping in ways I couldn't explain. The forest around it seemed to shift, to breathe. It was like the whole world was changing just for me, playing tricks on my mind. I tried to turn back, to retrace my steps, but the trees, those damn trees, moved to block my way, as though they knew what I was trying to do. I tried to push it all down, tried to ignore the fear creeping up my spine. But it was getting harder. Every step I took felt wrong, like the world was twisting under my feet. The air smelled rancid, like something decaying beneath the ground. It was choking me. I stumbled. My foot caught on something, and I went down hard onto the asphalt, scraping my arms against the rough earth. I lay there for a moment, gasping for breath, the world spinning, my head pounding. When I finally managed to get up, I saw him. Christopher. He was ahead of me, standing still, like he was made of stone. His eyes were vacant, distant. His face was ashen, his mouth hanging open like he hadn't spoken in days. He was staring past me, not at me, just staring. Chris, come on, please, talk to me. What's going on? You're scaring me, man, please. He blinked, then sighed softly, as if he was waking up from a dream. There's nothing to be scared of, dude. Just keep walking. We're becoming men, remember? Men don't get scared of stuff like this. You're gonna be fine. Just keep walking, and don't look behind you. They hate when you do that. My heart pounded. I wanted to scream, to shake him, but my voice wouldn't come. It was like the words got stuck in my throat, like my body had forgotten how to move. I took a step forward. Christopher didn't react. Another step. I listened to his words in my mind. I didn't look behind me. He never caught up to me, and I wasn't about to risk checking to see if he was even there anymore. Soon, I saw Robbie. The outline of his body appeared at the far end of the road, walking toward me. As soon as he got close enough for me to recognize him, his face contorted in pure, primal fear. His eyes bulged, his mouth agape in a silent scream. He was frozen in the middle of the road, and when I reached out, he screeched, his voice ragged. Don't hurt me! Oh God, please don't hurt me! I don't want to die. I want to stay young. Please, don't hurt me anymore. I was paralyzed, lost for words, but before I could even try to calm him, he bolted past me, running back down the road, screaming the whole way. I don't know how far he went, but I didn't stop hearing his cries. They echoed in the distance for at least 10 minutes, each one twisted with pain. I stumbled forward, my heart pounding, sweat dripping down my forehead. My legs were shaking, but I couldn't stop walking. It was like my body was on autopilot. That's when I realized Sam was walking beside me. I didn't react. I just kept walking next to him, as though this was a normal part of the walk. His face was still that grotesque canvas of ruined skin and broken bone. I could barely tell where his skull started and the rest of his face ended. It was as if his face had been rearranged into a nightmare, an abstract mess of flesh and bone, like a Jackson Pollock painting had somehow come to life. He paused after a few minutes, turning to face me, extending a hand. I didn't take it. I think I'm ready now. Bye, dude, he said. Bye, I whispered, and without another word, Sam turned away, walking down a fork in the road, the first fork we'd encountered. I blinked, and the fork, and Sam, were gone. The air felt even thicker now, pressing against me, suffocating me. I steeled myself and continued down the remaining path. As I rounded the curve, I froze. Ahead of me stood a figure. A figure waiting for me at the end of the road. It was me. A perfect double. A reflection in the flesh. No expression, no movement, just stillness. My heart started to pound violently in my chest. I stopped dead in my tracks, unsure of what to do. You're almost there, the figure said. The voice was flat, void of emotion, but unmistakably mine. The words sent a cold shiver down my spine. Before I could react, it spoke again, louder this time, with a sense of urgency. You're almost there. Almost you. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. It was as if something had taken hold of me, frozen me in place. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But something in me knew that wasn't allowed. Not now. The double smiled politely. You're almost me. Almost you, it repeated. Just a little farther, and you'll know. The road ahead of me began to blur. My thoughts spun out of control, like I was stuck in a dream, the edges of reality blurring into the void. I couldn't hold on any longer. I sprinted forward, desperate to finish the walk, to escape whatever this was. That's when I noticed them. They were still watching me. Or had they always been? The figures from the houses, from the mailboxes, were standing just off the sides of the road now, smiling at me, their eyes following my every move. They were waiting. And it hit me with sickening clarity. I wasn't walking toward the end of the road. I was walking toward something else. Something I couldn't see, but I could feel it. Something that had been waiting for me my entire life. I don't remember anything after that. Only that I didn't make it back to the village. Someone found me days later, someone out for a drive. I was wandering in circles, muttering to myself, eyes wide and unseeing. They took me to the police, then later to a foster home. But of course, no one believed me. What could they have done? I couldn't remember the name of my village. I couldn't even remember my parents. Everything was gone. Forgotten. And I knew there was no point in trying to explain the walk. So I kept it to myself. For over a decade, I've kept this to myself. But I've thought a lot about the words said to me before we started that day. You'll come back when you're ready. I'm ready now. I have been for a long time. But how the hell am I supposed to go back to a place I can barely remember? After I got my license, I spent months driving through the southeastern states, scouring maps for anything that could match what I remembered. Nothing. Not a single village, not even a road that looked like the one we walked. So, I kept my story to myself, and I guess that's why I'm writing it now. Everyone will think I'm crazy. But at this point, I don't care. I just needed to get this off my chest, tell someone about it. I'm done torturing myself over the idiot mile. After all, I'm a man now.